Hey guys, welcome on into Tomes. I'm Jason Wiley. I'm one of the hosts of Tomes here. Right now, what I'm going to be doing is a live reaction to the Dune Part 2 trailer. Uh, Again, I've already seen it a couple of times, so I'm going to be rewatching it now that it's not like so super fresh in my memory. So I'm wanting to watch it, give kind of an in-depth analysis of what we are going to be seeing in this upcoming film of Dune Part 2. I'm so excited, but without further ado, let's go ahead and dive on into the trailer.
It's breathtaking. When you see sand here, imagine water. If you dive in, you can't reach the bottom.
You dive in.
Yes, it's called swimming.
I don't believe you. In the shadows of Arrakis lie many secrets. But the darkest of them all may remain. The end of House Atreides.
Your father didn't believe in revenge.
What if Paul Atreides were still alive? Have you ever had a dream about your first ride?
Don't try to impress anyone. You're brave, we all know that. Be simple. Be direct. Nothing fancy.
I understand. Nothing fancy.
You will never lose me, Paul Atreides. We gave them something to hope for.
That's not hope! May thy knife chip and shatter.
So good. Honestly, it's looking really good. So here, bro, let's get back to the beginning here. So one
See
thing
sand
that
here?
immediately I'm already taking into account is the film is going to dive more into Paul and Chani's relationship. Chani is Zendaya's character. So they're going to delve more into those two's relationship, and that's what I'm seeing here. And so I'm excited to see how they're going to take it because in the book it was very glossed over, and actually in the book, after the events of basically part one of the film, the next thing is there's going to be a little trial, and then it's a 2 year skip where immediately we are seeing Paul and China's relationship after the 2 years. So that's one thing that I think this is going to be doing a fantastic job with is it's going to build Chani and Paul's relationship and really make it feel like that these two really do belong together. So that's one thing I'm already seeing and I'm already appreciating from the get-go.
Imagine water. If you dive in, you can't reach the bottom.
You dive in.
Yes, it's called swimming.
I don't believe you. In the shadows of Arrakis lie many secrets.
So this is showing Jessica as she has assumed the role of the Reverend Mother for the Fremen. So we're already seeing is the Palanquin. We're seeing it with the markings and already with the blue eyes. The blue eyes are proof of an addiction to the spice melange. But so anyway, continuing.
But the darkest of them all may remain.
So this is going to be Princess Irulian. This is the Emperor's daughter. In the books, how a lot of the chapters start off is a quote by Princess Aurelian talking about Paul as the kind of leader of the Freemen, the Maudib. So it's kind of cool to kind of see that little reference here as she is making these logs about Paul Atreides, about the Maudib. I am pretty sure I'm going to be I'm butchering that name, but it's been a while.
Maine. The end of House Atreides.
So one thing it briefly covers in the book about this scene specifically is that after the 2 years, during that 2 year, they apparently went back to the stronghold and they were able to cremate the Duke's body and be able to kind of cremate that all of his possessions and give him kind of a more proper funeral.
Your father didn't believe in revenge.
What if Paul
I just want to take a second here. That is an awesome shot. Just the cloak billowing in the wind, just it's just major props to the camera guys. Just that's so good.
What if Paul Atreides were still alive?
So here's the thing. They did not know Paul was alive. There was no body to confirm, but they all assumed because they got lost in the storm. So it was very much more of a revelation when, the Maudib is Paul Atreides. And actually what happens in the book, I can't remember this character's name for the life of me. I am so sorry. But he believes that Jessica was the traitor and not the doctor. So he is working with the Harkonnens to basically try to avenge Paul. And it's actually kind of confusing on his end. He believes that Paul is dead, and he believes it was due to his mother. It was his mother's fault. His mother was a traitor working for the Harkonnens. So he is very much hell-bent on trying to take down Jessica and Paul, again, nonetheless, he's working for the Harkonnens due to like a vengeance vendetta. And overall, it is the Emperor who executed the House Atreides. So by working with the Harkonnens, and the Harkonnens' goal is to overthrow the Emperor at some point. So he's working with them. It's like, okay, this is the true way of vengeance, or a true way of seeking justice for the wrongdoings that has happened to the House Atreides. So that's where Paul being alive is very much a question mark, and people don't really know. So it's interesting that Princess Irulan is kind of saying, what if he is alive? So because it does not contradict anything directly in the book at this point, but it was never really hinted. Okay, so now we're meeting one of the other Harkonnens. This is basically who the Baron kind of wants to inherit Arrakis. Originally, he was going to use his son as a patsy, and then come in and say, "Oh, look at me! I'm bringing truth and righteousness. I am for the people." And this guy was originally was going to be another guy. That was a bald guy. But this guy, he is a killer assassin. He is a killer fighter. And the way it shows it in the book is very much with the knives. And it's in a gladiator arena. So this is already looking good. And I already love just the way they are doing the lighting on a different planet. Because, again, I don't remember too much in the books on at least the complexion of the Harkonnens. But I love that in the movie it shows them like a super white. And it's showing it here is probably because of the sun. It is their way of showing their kind of their tan, so to speak, or lack of. So, and we see this. We're already can kind of assume that Harkonnen Senior here, the Baron, he is already trying to punish his son to try to raise him up to the next level. Although I think that is a really cool effect. I think this is inside the Siege or the sect. And that is very important. I won't dive too much into it, but this is how Paul is able to ascend to the next level. and how Jessica becomes the Reverend Mother of the Fremen, or actually just becomes a level of the Reverend Mother because of this liquid. I won't spoil it. I'll let that be in movies, but it is good and it is very important. Fremen versus a Sudakar. Oh, there's the arena match where he is yelling because they're going to be going more into the combat. And that is one thing that I think they just did a beautiful job doing, is showing Paul's visions. It's already looking good. It's already coming together very well.
Have you ever had a dream about your first ride?
This, not much of a spoiler. I think we could assume this was what was going to happen here. It was Paul riding the worm. I just love the way they did it. They make this look so much more badass than what we're normally seeing. So, because again, in the books, the way it was kind of described, and even in the 1980s version, it's very much like Paul runs up, gets the hooks it in. Because again, even in the book, it says like, because the way the worm moves is actually like spirals through. So as you hook it on the side, the spiral will actually take you up. And so you leave the hook into the one side and then you put the hook on the other side. So that way it stops it from really spinning too much. It's enough for it to really wiggle, but it gets under the plate specifically. So that way the sand gets into the skin and it's like, okay, I don't want to go down. The worm does not want to go down. So just this entire scene is so much better because, this is where movies exaggerate. And this is the one of the few times that they do it masterfully, because they make it seem cooler and a lot more badass. So let's rewatch it because I love this. The thumper.
Don't try to impress anyone.
I can give you the reasons why Stilgar is saying, oh, don't try to impress anyone, is because he is, in one respect, Stilgar, the guy who said that, don't try to impress, Stilgar is the leader of the Fremen, so to speak. And so he sees Paul as kind of an upcoming rival. But this is where Fremen culture is very different, very interesting. And I'm curious to see how they do it in the movie. So I'm really excited. Like, this is one of the few trailers I'm actually like, oh, yes, I'm excited. I like the changes already.
You're brave, we all know that. Be simple.
I love the rant.
Be direct. Nothing fancy.
I understand.
I like it.
Nothing fancy.
See, I'm curious because this entire scene in the book is a little different, and I'm really curious to see how they do the 2-year time skip. Whether or not they show Chani's and Paul's relationship at this point that it is in the book, or if they're just going to do away with one very important detail. I'm not going to say it until after the movie comes out because I don't want to spoil it if it is in there.
You will never lose me, Paul Atreides.
But again, I really like how they're trying to emphasize more Chani's and Paul's relationship.
We gave them something to hope for.
That's a very interesting thing. I really like this. Because in the book, at one point, Paul and his mother begin really butting heads. Because this is where Jessica is a master manipulator. And this is what really shows, because this is the Ben Gesserit to Gesserit, however it's pronounced. This is really where it really shows how cunning and manipulative they really are. Is because she's saying, oh, they view Paul as a leader. Okay, let's make sure they still see him as a leader and get them underneath his thumb. And for him, he's seeing these visions of the future where he's created kind of a jihad, kind of this just religious group that will follow anything and everything he does, or anything and everything he says, and they do it like a zealot. So he's trying to, in one respect, prevent that. And Jessica's trying to encourage it. And he's just like, no, I want them to actually have a future. I want them to be able to stand on their own. So that's what I find very interesting. And it shows in this trailer that those two are already butting heads.
Not home!
And I just love this scene just because it works so good. It is kind of a nod to the 1980s because of the way he does the...
May thy knife chip and shatter.
So this is where it's going to be very cool, very interesting, is we are finishing the first book. Because that scene is at the very end of the first book. And I believe that's going to be the climax we get to, is Paul versus the Harkonnen, who's a master with the blade. And what he said is like, may your knife chip. That's like, yeah, may thy knife chip and shatter. It is a Fremen saying, is a Fremen slogan on going into battle. Usually this is more of a diss because he's saying, you're not even worthy. I want your knife to break. But nonetheless, that's kind of what that line is saying, is like, may your knife chip and shatter. Basically saying, it's almost like saying break a leg, but actually he's going to break his leg. So overall, it looks great. I am so excited. This is finally a good book to screen adaptation. And I am so excited for it. This one might be on the same level and same tier that Lord of the Rings could be. That's the potential Dune has. And I am so excited and I'm so here for it. Is it will be on this, hopefully on the same level, same caliber as Lord of the Rings. But anyway, guys, thank you for tuning into this trailer breakdown. And I cannot wait for November 3rd to where we can actually go and see Dune Part 2 in theaters.